boats, gelate and sorbet.
They were once the golden children of American pop culture. The Olsen twins, Mary-Kate and Ashley, began their ascent to stardom before they were even old enough to speak full sentences. Cast as Michelle Tanner on the hit sitcom Full House at just 9 months old, the twins grew up under the bright lights of Hollywood. With their cherubic faces and undeniable screen presence, they quickly became America's sweethearts. But behind the cute catchphrases and matching outfits was a life deeply marred by an unrelenting spotlight, overexposure, and an industry that turned their innocence into a brand, one that would ultimately take a heavy toll on their personal lives and identities. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. Their earliest years were spent juggling the demands of fame. Unlike most children who enjoy quiet mornings and playful afternoons, Mary-Kate and Ashley were ushered from one filming location to another. They worked alternating shifts, as child labor laws allowed only a few hours of filming per day per infant. This meant that one twin would rest while the other performed, and their lives became an endless cycle of on-set routines. Even as toddlers, they were not shielded from the expectations of producers and executives. The entertainment industry was already pulling the strings, and their parents, both swept up in the rising fame, began to manage their daughters more like assets than children. As they grew older, the twins became more than just actresses. They were a brand. Their company, Dual Star, was launched when they were only 6 years old, and by the time they hit their teens, they had created a media empire that included movies, TV shows, clothing lines, dolls, and books. Their faces were on everything from lunchboxes to toothbrushes. They weren't simply stars, they were a multi-million-dollar franchise. What made this especially tragic was that the very essence of who they were, twin sisters, girls next door, smiling and in sync, was commodified, packaged, and sold to an ever-hungry audience. This constant commercialization robbed them of something deeply human, a private sense of self. For Mary-Kate and Ashley, there was no distinction between their public image and personal identity. Every moment of their childhood and adolescence was either documented, scripted, or molded into the ideal version of the Olsen twins that the world expected. It wasn't just about being famous. It was about being flawless, always together, always smiling, and always in control. But no child, no matter how gifted or mature, is equipped to shoulder such a burden. The pressure was not only immense, it was inescapable. While they appeared to be living a dream life, filled with designer clothes, red carpet appearances, and elite status, a storm was quietly brewing beneath the surface. Mary-Kate, in particular, seemed to struggle the most. Her frame, already naturally petite, became alarmingly thin during her teenage years. Whispers of eating disorders and mental health struggles swirled through tabloids, and while the public devoured the speculation, few considered the root causes of such visible distress. It wasn't vanity or rebellion, it was pain, and a desperate need for control in a life where everything had been orchestrated since infancy. Even their transition to adulthood was not met with the privacy or grace that most young people deserve. Paparazzi followed them relentlessly, their every outfit dissected, every expression analyzed. The tabloids delighted in contrasting the troubled twin versus the reserved twin narrative, further dehumanizing them into archetypes rather than individuals. Ashley, though quieter in the public eye, was not spared from the effects. The emotional toll of growing up without room to breathe, without space to define who she was beyond her sister or brand, left lasting scars. As they entered their 20s, Mary-Kate and Ashley made the conscious decision to step away from acting. It was a quiet retreat, not marked by dramatic announcements, but rather a slow fade from screens and spotlights. For many, it seemed abrupt, but for them, it was likely a lifeline. The decision to walk away from the world that had defined them was not merely about changing careers, it was about survival. After years of being consumed by the public, they needed to reclaim whatever fragments of themselves had not yet been surrendered. One of the most heartbreaking elements of their story is how the very thing that brought them joy as infants, play, creativity, expression, was twisted into a performance they could never escape. Hollywood never allowed Mary-Kate and Ashley to be just girls. It demanded they be icons, flawless in image and behavior, inspiring envy and admiration. When they faltered, the world pounced with criticism. There was no room for vulnerability, no safe place to fall apart. The support systems that should have been in place, protective parents, responsible agents, mental health professionals, were often compromised by the profitability of their success. Their silence in the years that followed is, in many ways, a testament to the cost of that kind of fame. They didn't transition into mainstream adulthood as other child stars often do. There were no splashy comeback films or reality shows. Instead, they retreated into the shadows, choosing a world where they could create through fashion, through design, on their own terms. But even as they stepped away, the echoes of their youth lingered. The culture that once obsessed over their every move now speculated on their absence, trying to pry open the closed doors of their adulthood. This societal obsession with twins, particularly those raised in the limelight, carries a strange and unsettling weight. Twins are often romanticized as two halves of one whole, a living mirror. In the case of Mary-Kate and Ashley, this mythology was exploited to the extreme. Every appearance was scrutinized for signs of discord or harmony. When one looked thinner, more tired, or less engaged, it sparked rumors of division or breakdown. The emotional complexities of being siblings, particularly identical ones, were turned into media fodder, stripping away any chance at a normal sibling dynamic. Despite the empire they built, the accolades, and the vast wealth, their lives are not a testament to success, but a cautionary tale. The story of the Olsen twins reveals the dark underbelly of child stardom and the price of turning children into commodities. They were not protected, but rather packaged. They were not celebrated for their inner lives, but rather molded into characters that served a consumer demand. And when the toll of that artificial existence finally surfaced, it was not met with empathy, but with judgment and sensationalism. It's impossible to ignore how gender played into this tragedy. As young girls, they were expected to be graceful, beautiful, and mature far beyond their years. Society's fixation on their bodies, their clothes, their romantic lives, all of it began long before they were old enough to give consent or understand the implications. They were sexualized as teenagers, paraded through fashion magazines and paparazzi spreads, forced to reckon with adult commentary on their appearance before they had even fully grown. There's something profoundly damaging about that kind of attention, and it shaped their worldview in ways few can imagine. The heartbreak lies not in the fact that they disappeared from the public eye, but in the reasons why they felt they had to. That level of withdrawal doesn't come from a place of contentment. It speaks to trauma, to exhaustion, to the desperate need for healing. The Olsen twins weren't just retiring, they were escaping. Not from acting, not from fame, but from a life that had never truly been their own. As they faded into the background of Hollywood's fast-moving machinery, they left behind a legacy complicated by both admiration and sorrow. Fans who grew up alongside them remember the joy of their films, the comfort of their perfectly synchronized laughter, the charm of their youthful adventures. But for Mary-Kate and Ashley, those memories are likely entangled with stress, anxiety, and a deep sense of lost time. Time that should have been spent discovering themselves instead of performing an identity designed by others. Their story is a mirror held up to a culture that glamorizes fame while ignoring its consequences. It's a sobering reflection of how childhood is often sacrificed on the altar of entertainment. The twins were talented, charismatic, and hardworking, but they were also children. Children who deserve space to grow, to make mistakes, to be messy and complex without cameras capturing every misstep. They were denied that, and the results were devastating. Even in adulthood, when they did find relative peace through fashion and a more private lifestyle, the weight of their past never seemed to lift entirely. Occasionally they would appear at events, always poised, always silent, always a little distant. It was as though the walls they had built around themselves were necessary fortresses. The light behind their eyes, once so vibrant in childhood, often seemed dimmed. Not absent, but cautious. It's hard to see that and not feel a deep sadness for what was lost. The tragedy of the Olsen twins is not rooted in scandal or downfall, but in the quiet erosion of childhood and the suffocating force of commodified identity. They were born into a world that saw them as marketable from the very beginning, and every stage of their life was engineered to maximize appeal, profit, and control. The cost of that engineering wasn't measured in dollars or ratings. It was measured in emotional wear, in the suppression of individuality, in the quiet retreat from a world that had once applauded their every move. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on the Olsen twins tragedy? What do you think happened? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.